Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that I'm not the only one who has fears in life, and fears that may be holding me back and hindering the ways I may choose to live my life. One of the areas that God has been shining a light so that I can kind of get some freedom from those hindrances and fears is around my fear to hope, to let myself hope, and to hope again after massive disappointment. I had placed a lot of hope in the idea of someone choosing me, someone choosing to want to marry me. And I guess I thought, when you finally get married, that means you're enough. You're enough to be chosen, and God has kind of put his stamp of approval on you, and you're not too much of a hot mess, so here you go, here's your spouse. It's kind of how I saw it. And so when I finally got married, just a couple months later, my husband said, this was all a mistake, and I'm done. And because of where I had placed my joy and where I had placed my hope, I was devastated. It was easily the darkest time of my life. And I didn't just lose a marriage, but I lost my quickness to hope. I lost my tenderness of heart because now I was so afraid. What if I hope again? If I go through disappointment like that again, I don't know if I could make it through it. So that's a huge fear of mine, or has been. And in this song that we're about to sing, it says, I am no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And when I think about the phrase, I'm a child of God, I think of my daughter and what it means for her to get to be my child. Nobody spends more time with my daughter than I do. I am the heaviest influence in her life. I'm there constantly having conversations with her and influencing what she believes about herself, what she thinks about herself. I'm there course correcting her thoughts and her perceptions of life. And so in considering my fear, it's been the same conversation I've been able to have with my Father, God, a real God, who's there. I have constant access to him to let him shape how I view what's happened to me. I can't control what someone else did, but I can control my heart's response to it. And I don't have to have a hard heart. I can choose to still be tenderhearted and to still let myself hope. And so I don't know what your fear is. I don't know what your fear is. Maybe you have a fear of apologizing to someone, or a fear of authority. Maybe you've been hurt by authority, and so now you're kind of resistant to it. I don't know what your fear is, but take hold of it in your mind. And as we sing this song, I just want you to consider this conversation with God. Like, okay, this fear, whatever it is that's been holding me back, God, what do you have to say about it? What's some truth you might want to speak into my mind and my ways so that I can live free and not be paralyzed and dictated and a slave to fear? So I want to invite you guys to sing this chorus with us. It says, I am no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Well, hey guys, my name is Sophie, if we haven't met. And if you do know me, you know that the last few years have been really hard for me. My life pretty much fell apart when my husband decided to leave our marriage. And actually just a few days after that is when I found out that we were pregnant. And so suddenly my life looked nothing like I ever imagined it would look like. This was not the life I pictured for myself. And I was so angry, and I was embarrassed. I felt stupid. I felt unwanted, unlovable, abandoned. And the only thing I'd ever seen of broken families was a ton of bitterness and anger and just this awful tension. And really the biggest victims of that are the kids, right? The kids are the ones that suffer the most. And I just knew I didn't want that for my daughter, but I didn't know any other way because I hadn't ever seen it before. I knew I didn't want her to have to pay for something she never asked for. I didn't want her to have to worry about protecting my emotions and being afraid to come home and tell me about the fun things she had done with daddy because she was afraid to hurt my feelings. I didn't want her to have to do that. And meanwhile, I had culture screaming at me about my rights, not just custodial rights, but my right to be angry and my right to be bitter and just holding on to that resentment. I knew that even though I didn't know how to not hate this person, that I didn't want my emotions to poison the soil that my kid was gonna have to grow up in. And so I just kind of cracked open my really hard, terrified heart and said, God, I have no idea how to do this, but what would it look like if I actually let you be Lord of this place that I feel like I have the right to hold on to and stay bitter about? And he started to propose to me, okay, Sophie, what if instead of you two being the ones that teach her what bitterness looks like, what if it's actually from you two that she learns what forgiveness actually looks like in real flesh? What if it's from the two of you that she learns what it looks like to honor someone who has hurt you? And what if you not only make me the Lord of putting you back together, because you know I'll be faithful to put you back together, what if you also make me the Lord of how you engage this new story that is your life? And so I started one by one handing over my emotions, being very real with God about how angry I was and how confused I was and all the fears I now had, but saying, but I'll let you in. I'll let you speak into this place where it's the lowest place in my life, but I'll let you direct me in this emotion. And I started to experience him like rewiring my brain, stuff that I knew was not from me, just because I let him into that space and said, you have permission to be Lord here. And I started these ideas came to my brain where it was like, what if actually this, so I'm dealing with emotions not just of an ex-spouse, but I'm also dealing with his new wife and another woman being in the life of my child. And you mamas know that territorial mama bear love, right? And this entitlement we think we have to like, she's mine. And I knew that even though I felt I had the right to not like these people, that was only going to hurt my child. And so just handing those emotions over to God and him redirecting my mind and going, what if actually this other woman is a blessing? What if, now there's this whole other person whose entire life is now centered around loving my child. It's a good thing. Now there's this other person who has gifts and hobbies and talents that I don't have. Let's just be honest. She likes to bake. I don't bake. Now, great. You do that with my child. You take care of that. All these things that I never would have brought to her life, my kid gets to experience. And just the comfort of knowing that when she's out of my care, when she's with her dad, there's another safe woman she can go to. These things are blessing if I let myself put down my pride and my territorialism and let God make something good out of my lowest spot. And I started to experience my heart actually kind of liking this woman and being able to see the good in her and thank her for helping me mother my child. And I felt that like physical weight on my chest actually lift, where now I'm experiencing freedom and I'm not feeling that anger on top of me all the time, and caught myself like praying for their marriage and blessing their marriage out loud, the exact opposite of what the enemy would want us to do in these situations. And so whatever your kind of locked up area is in your life where you feel like you have the right to hold on to it, you have the right to be angry or bitter, I just want to encourage you to maybe consider letting God in, having a conversation with him. What would it look like for you to let him be Lord of how you engage even that area? So I want to invite you guys to sing along. We're going to sing a song about letting God be the Lord of all.